everybody. I'm Will.
I'm Kristen.
And this is So I'm Watching Shadow and Bone, episode 8.
Finale. It's called No Mourners. I don't really care for any of the titles except for the first one.
Yeah, why is it called No Mourners? Because of the town?
I guess. I don't know. I think almost zero of the titles have made good sense.
Did the book chapters have titles?
I don't remember. I don't think so, but I don't remember. And I apologize to everybody who's like a super fan. I only read it once, so I don't remember, but I don't think so.
We're going to get a lot of fact checking in the comment section. I was like, I'm doing this for fun. But this was great. I was sort of, like I said, I ultimately enjoyed the show.
Yeah.
And I would get glimpses of a time where the parts of it felt like a chore. Like parts of it felt like I had to be like really paying attention because it was very in depth, you know.
There was a lot, and then on top of that, there was a lot that even I don't know because I haven't read the Six of Crows books, and then even further on top of that, like half the characters were at any given moment double crossing the other characters. And so it was like all very.
This was sort of a relief for me because for the most part I could just watch it. Yeah. I wasn't having to try to remember or translate words or but so I guess we can start with Nina and Matthias.
Yeah.
I'm really into them, and it's the nature of these types of stories that I guess we can't just have a happy couple. I don't like the notion that we've undone the work that we've done.
Yeah, same. I don't like that he was like, that's what I get for trusting you in the first place and I'll never do it again. That's what I don't like. And I don't like that he can't understand that she 100% saved his life. Like the other
they didn't even really get a chance
to talk.
Yeah.
The Grisha were absolutely going to kill him, and this way he's at least still alive, and she's bought him time, and she can try to get him out, and he's just
he didn't even see them. He was out like a light.
Yeah,
and so it makes sense, but it's just, as a viewer, it is
frustrating.
And, like I said, I understand the nature of these stories, and it's certainly the YA, like keeping characters apart is the point.
Yeah.
I think we could have found other ways for drama, for conflict, other than just immediately throwing them right back in the same or the reverse predicament.
Yeah, and it feels like they had been together for days at that point, and for it just to immediately be like, well, you're a liar and a betrayer.
Well, I mean, if he's like a zealot and thinks she's a witch,
sure. Yeah, still.
It takes. Yeah. Do you know if this has been a hit this weekend? It was number 1, right?
I think it's been a hit this weekend. There's not been any like official season 2 yet, but I can't imagine.
I'm going to presume. Yeah. And
it's very popular.
So obviously the story will presumably continue.
Yeah. Netflix.
Yeah. It's a real gamble.
Although in fairness, I do think they shot a lot of this during pandemic. So I think they were like, I think it's going to be a go.
Well, it's an expensive show. It looks gorgeous.
Yeah.
All of this stuff, it's so funny, but it's like I weirdly come alive in the Fold. I think the Fold is so cool.
It's pretty cool,
and especially once she made the tunnel, it was very like the Prince of Egypt. Like
he made the tunnel with her power. I am even more disappointed in the antler necklace now that you can't even see it at all. It just fully absorbed into her. I don't care for that.
It was there.
Yeah.
I loved the lighting when they were in the Fold was really, it was really good because obviously that's a digital effect. They were most likely on like a green screen, what have you. Yeah. And so that was really exceptional lighting. So, we had our crows. It's funny because I remember that. Like, I remember you explaining the book title and everything, but it took until the last episode for me to be like, oh, right, I could have just been calling them the crows this whole time and not having to rack my brain for the exact pronunciation of each of their names. But so they teamed up with Mal in the, I'm sure there's
the like hold of the skiff.
And he went in guns blazing. And I mean, he wasted 3 bullets. And granted, I mean, he took out 3 Grisha, but also arguably they needed to go. So I guess that was for the best, but he could have shot Kirigan. Yeah. It would take clearly more than a single bullet.
Gunshot. Because a single blade to the heart didn't do it. It just made him bleed black blood. Yeah, I don't know. I just Mal is just like not my favorite, and he is for me, he really falls into the like boring YA love interest that like you've known since childhood, and finally he sees you now, and it's just like, ugh. I don't know.
She said it like
for me.
She said in like the 3rd episode where she was like, he always wanted to retire to a farm, and
I don't
like farms.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's holding you back, Alina.
That's the problem. Is like at the end of the day, the Darkling is correct. That he has more in common with Alina, and they also now are like total mirror images of each other because he is evil and she is good, and it's just like, you think you're gonna be, it's very Gone Girl too. It's like, you think you're gonna be happy with this bitch? Are you kidding me? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Zoya, I made a note in like 2 episodes ago where I was like, she pulled an Erica from Underworld, and she continued that streak. Although she ended up even better, I would say.
Yeah.
She ended up fighting with Inej. They formed a friendship, and you were really happy with this like group of characters we had on the other side. And you were like, oh man, I love this. And then they immediately part ways. All on the same ship, though. But
yeah, I don't really know. I think they're going to part ways after they get across the True Sea as well. But I just was like, really? This, like, because it's like all the crows and then Zoya and then Alina and Mal. And I was like, this could be so interesting. Because book 2 is like 90% just like Alina and Mal alone in the woods and like on a boat and stuff. And I get there's another cool character that comes in. But regardless, I was literally like, come on. And then they were like, well, we've got to go back. And then Alina gave them that necklace. And I'm just like, fine.
That was interesting. Yeah, that was a good point. Because she had changed out of that stuff real quick. And I was like, she was still wearing the dress, but she got her hair down.
Yeah.
But no, that seemed, I mean, that had to have been worth so much money.
Yeah, well, Kaz even had the line where he told Inej, he said, 1 gem from that necklace will clear your debt with Helene.
Mm-hmm.
And there were like several hundred gems on there.
There weren't that many.
There were so many.
I mean, I guess probably diamonds and stuff. Yeah,
like they were relatively small to make the like pattern. So
I finally, and again, I remember all of these words. I remember them from the show, and I remember you sort of telling me, but it all kind of like came full circle.
Coalesced in the
there you go. It's like when you're living in a new place and you've been to like this part of town and you've been to this part of town, but you've never driven between the two.
And then you realize
and then you're like,
road,
whoa!
Yeah.
And so that's what happened with this episode, was I finally sewed the entire map together. So I had just been calling him General Keegan Allen because he looked like Keegan Allen from Pretty Little Liars. But so he's part of Across the Fold, and they're trying to secede. I would say rightfully so. They can't communicate with the other part of...
Well, they
certainly not easily.
Not easily. They sort of can. The problem is that like then that guy, that general he also is like power hungry, and he's like I could be the leader of West Ravkan if we like. So that's why he wants to kill Alina, because if they don't close the fold, they can secede and have their own shit, and then the rest of Ravka is just like up a creek.
Close the fold and then secede.
Yeah, it's all very the politics of the show is really not what I care about.
I genuinely love how, like, happenstance the fold is. That there are people just really gambling.
Yeah.
And like we talked about from the first episode with he ran through.
Oh, Alexei.
How he just was kind of like, yeah,
and he made it 37 markers.
You can really sort of just like power your way through, or even the dumb train. It's like, I don't know. I think it's very funny that it's established as this like great, world bending threat. And then ultimately you're just kind of like, we'll wing it.
Yeah, there is a decent amount of winging it.
Has anyone tried hang gliding through? I mean,
in a way that there's not that much winging it in the book. They it is very treacherous, and like again, I don't know the Six of Crows stuff, so I don't know if Arkin's like train is real or whatever, but it is very funny. And also like Alexei just gets eaten by so he's like does not make it to the other side that I'm aware of. So there is there's a lot of moving parts, and you're right, it is sort of like if it's almost like if you want it bad enough, and it's like I feel like so many of them want it bad enough and it's not working.
So yeah, she absorbed the antlers, and
because the stag chose her, and so that because like
that was pretty.
Kirigan was like, "How did you do that? That's not possible." And she was like, "You stole the power, but he gave it to me."
Well, she She then like popped his hand bone like it was a bottle cap, and I was like,
stabbed him through it, but
it went,
yeah,
whoop, whoop, whoop. It was kind of cool. So, and then they threw him to the proverbial wolves.
Yeah,
and they made sure to tear his face up, which is, I guess, a requisite.
Ben Barnes, take a job where you stay pretty for all of the seasons, please.
Well, but then he like ripped him out of the fold.
Yeah.
So I guess they can survive outside of the fold now. The implication was that they didn't.
Well, the implication is that they can't survive her light.
Then why had they not wandered out? They just
I don't know.
direction.
But I also think it's partially the way he called them out. Like, I think he's protecting them now as well.
But they did consume that like West Ravkin
Town.
Yeah. And presumably killed General Keegan Allen, because
he was not getting far enough away.
Yeah, a thing came down and we saw like a whoomp,
yeah.
whoomp. So
yeah.
So Zoya's going off to find her family, I guess?
She's going to see how much of the town was absorbed and see if any of her family survived.
So she'll probably be like properly in the second
I hope so.
season.
I like how she came around. I liked her attitude at the end. I like that she still was like, I don't like you, Alina, but like, thank you, I guess.
Big Cordelia energy.
Yeah, sure. And then the crows need a heartrender, and Nina overheard, and she is a heartrender, so I feel like they're gonna team up also. Be fun.
While her beau is in prison for 2 years.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I just feel like there's gotta be a way to get him out.
We'll find out, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
I want there to be more of this. I really enjoyed it, sort of from start to finish. I might watch it again without the, like, pressure of having to talk about it.
It's a little bit harder than it looks. I know we are we're doing this to ourselves, but it gave me, and not just in fantasy epic, but it gave me season 1 of Game of Thrones vibes in the sense that
well, it was certainly better than season 8. Sorry.
Check back to episode 1 coverage if you're curious. I had to watch the entire season before I really got there. I did enjoy it, but by the end I was like, okay, cool, I'm on board. And then it quite literally wasn't until my third time watching season 1 that everything clicked. And I was like, because remember they were talking about people before we even, Stannis, before we even met him and all that. And I mean, obviously I recognized that some of the words were familiar, but I didn't know what the cities and everything were. Sure. And so it's like, if this were to take off, I feel like by my third time watching episode or season 1, you know, with my mom or Rachel or my brother or whatever, I'll be like, oh, duh.
I 100% get it now.
Because I was like, why didn't they explain this in our first episode coverage? And Will pulled the 2 scenes where they do. And I was like, well, that was jibber jabber to me when it was happening.
No, I definitely get it. Because you made a comment about Carnival Row, I think, also in episode 1 of this. And you were like, whatever, I guess we kind of liked it, but I remember that we both liked it by the end. Like it was very samey to this, and it was like by the time we got to the end of season 1, we were like, well, now we're cooking with gas, and we were like, where's season 2?
It's a lot of work that is not guaranteed is going to pay off, because a lot of these things, like that's even similarly with Cursed, where it was like by the end of Cursed, I was like, okay, cool, now what are we gonna do? And it's just sort of like, Witcher, all of them, yeah. So
that's the thing. I think there's a really high sort of barrier to entry with a lot of fantasy YA stuff. And it's like, because of all the world building that you have to do early, and because the fans of the books are so rabid, you have to do that really early, and like you have to get all of the things in. But then it's like so much right up front until the series can breathe. But then it's like, by the time you get enough information so the series can breathe, the first season's over, and then you have to wait for production. And so it is sort of, it's like a balancing act. And I think so often the information is so weighted at the front that it's like, it's so jam-packed that it's hard to keep track until you're like where you are, especially with the way that like the television industry is now. Like 8 episodes is like, it's a lot.
This could have been 10.
It's a lot, but it's seemingly not enough.
Well, if you want a fantasy book that is not a series, that has lots of world building, lots of mythos, some names, but for the most part,
graspable.
Call things what they are.
Yeah.
Fairy tale.
It
is long, but it's an easy read. I always stress that.
It's not a series, but it is 700 pages long.
It's an easy read.
It is.
But it is a mashup of all the fairy tale characters and tropes. And actually, the way that I do pitch it to people is I pitch it as Gossip Girl meets Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Very good. Check it out.
So it's got the style and the fashion and the glamour and sense of humor of Gossip Girl with like the stakes and the whoa, what monsters of Game of Thrones.
Very good. There is a link on our website, soimwatching.com. Just click on fairy tale at the top of the page.
Mystical beasts with weird antler situations on their heads and a pure girl that grazes
reaches
its
out
hand
and touches it.
I'm trying. Apparently I need to be pushing this stuff more, but
we also have a Patreon. If you've appreciated this, we do this relatively frequently. We're using the Patreon a little bit more like a tip jar. So you can go to patreon.com/so I'm watching this show. And
to quote Mira Mangle, help us keep the lights on.
Yeah. You know, all this merch that we have, it's not cheap.
This swag doesn't buy itself.
All right. Well, that's it for us. We will absolutely be back should there be a season 2 of Shadow and Bone, and we'll do the same thing next time. There's not really anything else coming up this summer except for Loki that we're already planning to do.
We will be covering Claws.
And we will be covering Claws
and with our friend Sade from Offscreen Babble. And most likely Animal Kingdom. We'll see.
We'll see. I'm 3 seasons behind, so it's going to be a lot of me doing what he was doing at the beginning of this show.
Fuck if I can explain it. You out of your goddamn mind?
It's going to be a lot of both of us being really confused. All right.
That's it.
Yep. Give us a follow on Twitter @SoI'mWatching or Instagram @SoI'mWatching the show. And that has been it for our Shadow and Bone coverage. Big thumbs up from me for sure.
There was no music. I want to like.
There was not a lot of music.
Like,
yeah. It could use a theme, if I'm being honest.